if you really look at them objectively, a lot of the stuff you say to yourself is bullshit. It's not true. It's not kind. Certainly not helpful.
Yeah.
And you ought to knock it off.
And you're keeping yourself stuck. Yeah. Stop it.
Stop it. Stop it. And if you do find yourself doing it, you're very bad.
Bad, wrong, and you should be very self-critical and judge yourself.
Up over that. It's terrible. It's a terrible habit, and you are an awful, awful human being. Welcome to Making Yourself Clear. I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
Today we're going to start with a question.
Okay. What's the question?
Imagine if you had someone who constantly pointed out your flaws, shamed you, and never let you forget any of your past mistakes. What would be an appropriate response? How would you handle such a character?
Okay, so they're shaming me.
Yeah.
They're telling me all of my flaws and mistakes.
Yeah.
And they're not letting anything go?
Not letting anything go, reliving past problems, constantly telling you you're not good enough.
I don't think I would want that person in my life.
Neither would I. I think objectively and rationally, you would invite them out of your life.
Yeah.
And if they persisted, you might seek a restraining order.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If I had someone who was constantly just nagging me and just telling me what a piece of garbage I was, I would, yes.
Terrible behavior.
Yeah.
Right? Terrible.
Not acceptable.
Objectively, terrible behavior. So the question is, why do we tolerate that from ourselves? So today's episode is kind of tongue-in-cheekily referred to as Real Talk About Self-Talk. We're going to talk about our internal dialogue and some internal dialogue hygiene. And as per usual, we'll talk about what it is, why this matters, why this is hard.
Yeah.
What we can do about it. We'll cover some pitfalls, things to watch out for, and provide some practical tools and frameworks.
So the way that we talk to ourselves is pretty important in a lot of aspects of our life. It shapes our perception of who we are. It shapes our emotional state, has a big effect on self-confidence, and can also shape our behavior not only in the way that we speak to ourselves, but that can leak out into the way that we speak to other people as well.
Yeah, it's pretty fundamental. Such a formative aspect of our worldview. How we talk to ourselves about ourselves forms our belief systems about who we are and our place in the world. Mm-hmm. And then so much flows from that. Like what we see as possible for ourselves, how we think of ourselves in relationship to others, how we show up, the opportunities we choose to pursue or pass on, how assertive we are or how passive we are, how passive aggressive in some cases.
Yeah.
Like this runs deep and shows up absolutely everywhere. So we're definitely not going to cover everything that there is to talk about on this
likely not
topic in one sitting, but we're going to touch on it and hopefully provide some useful insights and importantly, some practical tools.
I mean, this happens to me, right? I'll do something. I'll think, that was so stupid. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's that internal character that you wouldn't tolerate if they were external. I would not put up with someone coming up to me after a meeting or anything for that matter, being like, you're a real idiot. You know that?
Right.
But I tolerate it for myself all the time.
Totally. So the voice in your head is really not always the friendliest. And if you're watching this going, what voice in my head? What's he talking about? That voice, the one that said that is the one we're talking about. So there's a few ways to look at this. The roommate in your head is one metaphor. Like if you imagine the voice in your head was a roommate who just followed you around and spoke like that to you, you'd punch the person in the face probably, or you'd want to if you're not actually violent.
Or you start yelling back and then you're just in a weird conflict with yourself.
We wouldn't tolerate that kind of treatment from anyone else, but we do tolerate it from ourselves. And not only do we tolerate it, we elevate it and view it as almost the capital T truth.
Not only do we tolerate it from ourselves, I liked what you said, like, I wouldn't tolerate somebody else speaking to me that way. The flip side of that is I wouldn't speak to anybody in that way.
Right. Exactly.
I wouldn't talk to anyone else the way that I speak to myself internally sometimes.
Precisely.
And so we want to give you a couple of tools to just break that down and start talking to yourself in a nicer way.
So there's a few ways to think about this in terms of neuroscience. There's this network in the brain called the default mode network, this complex network of synapses and brain areas. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can only speak about it at a very broad strokes level. But the way it works is it's the default mode, meaning it comes online when we're not otherwise fully occupied on something else.
Right.
So when you're sitting there just idle, that's when your inner chatter fires up, and it tends to be very self-referential.
Yeah.
Thoughts about yourself, and it tends to be often unhelpful. So this is where like mind wandering, rumination, and all that stuff comes in.
Where you start thinking about all of the things you did when you were an 8-year-old, all of the dumb things you did.
Yeah, or all the things you screwed up today or yesterday, or the things you're worried about in the future, or all of that stuff. Whereas if you're fully on a task, like focused on whether it's work or a sport or a performance or something.
You're in the zone.
You're in the zone, and that quiets down. And this is why they talk about flow states being so healthy and valuable. Because a flow state is like what an athlete refers to as being in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when all of your attention is dedicated to the task at hand and the default mode network quiets down.
Yeah.
You can also quiet it down through things like meditation, psychedelics as well. And there are other ways to quiet that down, and it's healthy to do that from time to time. But anyway, that's the default mode network plays a role in this. There's also this concept in a branch of therapy called internal family systems,
right?
Which some of our listeners may have heard of, or it's also referred to as parts work. So it's this idea of we think of ourselves as this cohesive, singular self, but really we're a bunch of parts. And whenever you say, oh, part of me wants to do this, but a part of me wants to do that,
right?
Everybody can relate to that. So this starts with that premise that says we have these multiple little sub-personalities inside of ourselves, and sometimes they're aligned and sometimes they want different things. Like
think of like the angel and devil on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
So you probably have more than one inner voice. You've got different parts and they speak in different voices at different times.
Yeah.
And that's also a related framework for thinking about this sort of thing.
Yeah. The devil on your shoulder that says Taco Bell would be really good right now. We should get some Taco Bell. And then the angel says, oh yeah, Taco Bell's really good. We should get
Well, that's when they're aligned. And then you're at the drive-thru before you know it.
That's right. So why does this matter? Why do we care? Listen, we spend a lot of time in our own heads. We spend a lot of time thinking about all this stuff. Internal dialogue is our default way of framing things. So if we have poor internal dialogue hygiene, then it can create a lot of issues with self-doubt. It can create a lot of issues with poor perception of yourself, which can in turn create situations where you're just not confident and you're second guessing things.
Also, not just poor perception, but distorted perception.
Yes.
And that's critical to realize that our internal voice or voices all have biases.
Yeah.
And a lot of them came online when we were younger. And so they see the world through overly simplistic or childlike eyes. And as an adult, you know intuitively that a child's view of the world is distorted by necessity. But if you're not careful, you will let this younger voice in your head, you'll elevate it to the status of like accurate and true, and you won't realize that it's got bias and distortion. We tend to think that our sense of self is accurate. I work with clients all the time who have trouble receiving positive feedback.
Yeah.
Like someone will give them a compliment and their first thought is, yeah, but you don't really know me. You'll find a way to invalidate it.
Yeah.
The insults you let in, but you block the compliments for some reason, which is a form of distortion.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are lots of people out there who are feeling like, oh yeah, I'm guilty of that, definitely. If someone pays me a compliment, I look for any way that I can disarm it, or what do they want from me, right? What are they trying to get from me? And that's not healthy behavior. That's not a healthy way to talk to yourself.
And it's not accurate.
Very inaccurate. Yeah.
So this shows up all over the place in relationships, in a professional setting, and it can form sticky beliefs. You might come to see yourself as someone who's not good at X or Y. I'm not good at public speaking, or I'm not good with conflict. And then you'll make choices based on that belief.
Yeah.
And you'll avoid certain situations or pass up certain opportunities.
It's funny. This is so silly, but I had a moment in my life 2 weeks ago where I was with a friend and he had drawn something. I was like, oh, you're a really great artist. And he was like, it's not that tough, just some lines and stuff. I said like, oh, well, I can't draw. I've never been able to draw, which is something I've believed about myself for a very long time, something that was sort of ingrained in me in, teachers say things or people who are important to you in your life say things, and you just you adopt that. And so I said, yeah, I can't draw for anything. And then just for fun, when no one was around, I took a marker and I got up, there was a whiteboard there. So I looked up a picture of the Roadrunner.
Oh yeah.
From Looney Tunes. It's like, I'm going to draw a Roadrunner right now. And I did. And I was like, this doesn't look that bad.
Yeah.
Apparently I can draw. And I sent a picture to him. He said, I thought you said you couldn't draw. So I was like, there it is.
Yeah, these things you got to be careful with them for sure.
Yeah.
On the positive side, right? We've talked so far about all this negative self-talk, which unfortunately,
that's a lot of people's default way of being.
We have a negativity bias baked in, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But conversely, well, you can take it to the other extreme, which is somebody who's way too grandiose and like narcissistic, who has too high an opinion of themselves.
We need to keep things balanced.
But if you've got a balanced, gentle, accepting self-talk, you can recognize it in a person. They just have a calmer presence.
Yeah.
They're less neurotic. And, as you advance in your professional career, you may hear things like, oh, you need to cultivate executive presence.
Right.
And I think that has a lot to do with just having a quieter mind and being comfortable with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and knowing that you're not going to get everything right, but that doesn't mean you're doing everything wrong.
That's right. And it's what meaning do you attribute to making a mistake?
Yeah.
Right? Is it, oh, you idiot, or you'll never be good at this, or you suck? Or is it, oh, I missed the mark on that. What can I learn from it?
Yeah. Right. Where can I iterate and how can I get better at this?
Yeah. Or I was a little off my game the other day. That happens.
Sure.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Right?
Happens to everybody. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can beat yourself up and ruminate and reinforce a negative identity, or you can say, oh, that wasn't my best effort.
Yeah.
Okay. Not everybody is on their A game all the time.
Right.
That's all right. What can I do to be better prepared next time? So why do we struggle with this?
Yeah. So part of it is something that you've mentioned a bunch of times before in previous episodes, right? Evolutionary psychology. We're wired to be alert to threats. Our inner voice tends to be critical and to be cautious around things because we don't want to die.
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands of years ago on the savannah, early humans who were super paranoid and scanning the horizon for threats tended to bolt and run earlier and get eaten less.
So we bred in a negativity bias just because those were the ones who were surviving.
They got to live another day and had more babies, and the calm, sort of zen, patient ones became tiger meat. So we are twitchy humans living in a cushy world.
So there's the evolution piece. Social and cultural conditioning, we internalize those early voices. Again, parents, teachers, peers. How could you be so stupid? And then you take that on. Oh, I'm a stupid person, or I do stupid things.
Yeah. And sometimes we internalize things that were literally said to us.
Yeah.
Other times somebody says something or looks at us a certain way and we add meaning to it. You know, mom or dad isn't paying attention to me. That must mean I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Maybe it just means they had a rough day at work and are tired. But as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old,
you don't know the difference.
You don't think in those terms. You think I must be bad or I must be inadequate.
So all of those things that we just take on early in life, and it doesn't even have to be early in life. You know, maybe you're at a job right now and someone gives you some feedback or some criticism that's not as nice as it could be, and you internalize it. Or again, maybe if you have just a self-critical voice in your head already, anything that comes your way, you look for an opportunity to just be super hypercritical.
Well, and that's the other thing. When we form a belief, then confirmation bias kicks in and we start seeing all the evidence that supports that belief, and we start subconsciously filtering out any counter evidence.
Yeah.
The belief becomes stronger and stronger, and we become more certain of it, even though it's not that we're being presented with a consistent stream of evidence. It's that we have a strong bias on, and that's all we can see.
So that voice just chattering away, just saying like, oh, here's another.
Here you go again.
Here you go again.
There's another one. Yeah. So the other piece is that these things become habits, right? Like we tend to think of habits in terms of behaviors, things we do physically, but we have habits of mind.
Yeah.
Habitual thoughts that we repeat over and over again. I read somewhere some statistic of the tens of thousands of thoughts we have every day. Some overwhelming percentage of them are the exact same thoughts we had yesterday and the day before and the day before.
That tracks. Yeah, I can see that.
Right. And so these are well-trodden paths.
Yeah.
And like every habit, these are just neural pathways that we've
just dug real nice grooves that we can just go along.
Easy to fall into.
Yeah. I know this path. I'm familiar. I'm comfortable with this path, even if it's not necessarily the best for me.
That's
right?
it. Yeah. That's it. Over time, it can start to feel like an identity. That inner voice in your head, or that collection of inner voices, we can start to identify with them, and it just starts to feel like who you are.
Yeah. I'm not an artist. I'm not an artistic person, right? That was just there, and I said it, and it took just actually challenging that to break out of that, you know?
And this is where a lot of things like coaching and therapy and other self-reflective, introspective practices can become super useful. And I can speak to this both on the receiving end, but also as a coach professionally. Like a lot of these beliefs we form along the way don't stand up under any kind of meaningful,
any kind of scrutiny at all.
Any actual balanced critical analysis. And we just don't think to do that. So
how often do you have the opportunity to sit down with someone, unless it's in a coaching environment where there's, you know, a structure and a safe environment to do so? Like we don't often sit down with people and say, here are the things that I think about myself.
Right.
And get the opportunity to challenge what has become an identity.
Yeah, totally. And speaking in terms of parts, right back to the internal family systems thing, like these inner parts are often stuck in these protective roles from earlier in life. And if you do IFS kind of therapy, a lot of what that's about is getting in touch with those inner parts and getting them unstuck.
Right.
So when it comes to upgrading or dealing with the inner voice, how do we get this wrong? Because there are different things we might instinctively try to do to combat some of that negativity.
Yeah.
And some of the things we do actually are counterproductive. So let's talk about what some of those are.
So one of the things that you'll hear a lot is, well, you've just got to think positive, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? I've got to think positive. I've got to rewire the way that I think. Often backfires because you can't silence the inner voice. You can't silence the inner critic.
Right.
It's always going to be there. It's always going to be nagging. But what you can do is you can train it to go down different paths. Like you
can
said.
Upgrade it.
Yeah.
Now, you said something about just think positive, and this is important to touch on because there's a lot of memes and things that float by about positive affirmations and all that sort of thing. One of the pitfalls is just trying to plaster over this stuff with a forced Pollyanna, like overly saccharine, cheesy sort of self-talk. Like, oh, I'm powerful and I'm strong. And like, you hear a lot of these affirmations that just are so cringy. Yeah. That's not what we're talking about here, because notice the reaction you have to some of that cringy stuff, you cringe. And so if you start trying to put that into your head, likely what you're going to internalize is, oh, I suck at X, and also I'm super cringy.
Yeah, this standing in the mirror. People like me, darn it.
Right. Oh, who is it? The old Saturday Night Live skit.
Exactly.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And doggone it, people like me.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about that. That's a pitfall, is just trying to plaster over it with stuff that doesn't ring true.
But the other side of that is believing that inner critic is the truth.
Right.
The inner critic is
the
probably
real
right.
truth about
the
me
real
is
truth
I do
about
suck
me.
at this, or I am a bad person, or whatever your version of that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really sticky one. The first step is recognizing that voice is fallible and being willing to question it and being willing to consider that it may be wrong, actually. And now you're not plastering over it. You're actually adopting a new belief that resonates and is more aligned with reality, more grounded in objective evidence.
Well, what can be helpful here is just if you take that internal voice and you make it external. Because if you hear yourself saying it, you might be given an opportunity then to challenge it. Or if you say it out loud to somebody else,
Some of it's just preposterous on the face of it.
Absolutely.
And then when you hear yourself say it, you're like, well, obviously
that's not true.
That's not true.
Yeah. But if you're just sitting with your own thoughts, you don't necessarily you don't challenge. It's like you said, right? A lot of the thoughts that I'm having today are the same thoughts that I had yesterday. I'm probably not challenging them.
Or even dwelling on them much, or even noticing them. Like you're not even necessarily tuned in, because it happens in a flash.
Yeah.
You likely notice the feeling quicker than the thought. The thought happens, then you feel a certain way, like frustration or shame or regret. And the feeling is more evident than the thought that gave rise to it.
Yeah.
But by slowing down and labeling that thought, now you got something to work with.
Well, and so that's the other thing that can happen, right? When we have the thought and we label it, sometimes we can judge ourselves for having negative self-talk, which just reinforces the whole thing. And now you're just in a loop.
Now you're judging yourself for judging yourself.
Judging yourself for judging yourself.
This meta shame loop. Totally.
Yeah.
A couple of other pitfalls are confusing that toxic rumination with something helpful.
Right.
Or believing, like I remember when I was first confronted with this idea of, what if you let go of some of that shame and that inner nasty critic? And my fear was, well, if I let that go, then I'm going to lose my motivation, and then I'm just going to be lazy or something. I'm going to be a couch potato. So I need that drive.
You need that to push you.
To push me. What would I was afraid of evicting the roommate, because without that abuse, would I actually get anything done?
Right.
Or would I just they're the one with
disintegrate? They're the one with the car that gets you to work. They give you a ride.
It's like the stick that they beat me with to get me to go to the gym or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
If I don't have that person shaming me for how I look in the mirror, am I just going to get lazy and stop working out, for example? So that can be a tricky one. I can tell you from firsthand experience, you don't need an asshole in your head to be motivated and to have a good life. In fact, you're better off without it.
You got one asshole, you don't need two.
Or a collection of them.
So something just to reflect on, whose voice does your internal dialogue resemble? And is that someone that you want as your co-pilot? If you think back, right?
Is that even your voice?
Is it even your voice?
Or was that someone else's voice that you internalized?
Yeah.
In psychology, they call that an introjection. People have probably heard of projection. That's when you project something onto someone else that's actually your own stuff. Introjection is when someone else puts something on you
Then you adopt
and you take it in, even though it is properly theirs.
Yeah. So whose crap have you adopted? And when are you going to pack it up and ship it out?
Yeah. Give them an eviction notice.
Yeah.
So what can be done about this? One of my favorite quotes on this topic comes from a figure who's become kind of polarizing and controversial in recent years, Jordan Peterson. Earlier in his kind of public persona career, he stayed more in his lane and talked about psychology, being a psychologist.
If only he had continued to do that.
Yeah, he got into politics and...
Anyway, let's go to...
We're not going to talk about Jordan Peterson too much, but the quote, hopefully knowing that it's from him doesn't taint it for you if you're not a fan of his. The quote is, "Speak to yourself the way you would treat someone that you are responsible for helping." And I thought that was really insightful because the truth is you are someone that you are responsible for helping.
Right.
First and foremost, you are in charge of helping yourself more than anyone else is. And it gives rise to a really interesting thought experiment. If you imagine taking someone under your wing, you're a mentor or a parent or a coach to this younger person, and you're charged with taking care of them and helping them advance in life and grow.
Yeah.
And imagine if they experienced some setback or some disappointment that you're going through, and they brought it to you.
Right. How would you...
For help. And now imagine saying to them the shit you say to yourself. Right?
Yeah.
It's laughable.
It is.
It's preposterous. It would be actually abusive.
Right.
Right? And you probably... Not only would you not say it, it wouldn't even occur to you to say it.
Yeah, and if you saw somebody else saying it, you would probably...
You'd call Child Protective Services, or you would intervene and be like,
absolutely,
not on my watch. You don't get to talk to that person that way.
You can't talk to the person that way.
It would be so egregious and preposterous.
Yeah. Or specifically, well, I liked the quote, right? Speak to yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. So if I were to walk into a space and it was someone that I was responsible for, and I saw someone speaking to them in the way that I speak to myself sometimes, I would absolutely, I would deck them. I would throw them down the stairs.
You'd step in and say, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah,
right?
No, I would use actual violence. It wouldn't be violent.
So that's just a way to break the state and say, wait a minute, like if I'm responsible for helping myself, what gives me the right to talk to myself this way?
Yeah, and when you look at it through that lens too, it's just, I'm not actually helping myself.
It's not helpful. No. Totally. It's not helpful at all. So that's a good frame and something to keep in mind as a reminder.
Yeah. It's a good quote.
Yeah.
Regardless of who said it.
Regardless of who said it.
Yeah. We talked about internal family systems and parts and inner voices that have positive intentions, even if the way in which we get about there is problematic. And so changing those parts, can you speak a little bit more about that?
Totally. So it's one of the tenets of internal family systems is that every part, every inner voice has a positive intention, even if the way that they enact it is problematic or downright dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that can happen, your inner critic will say something negative and then you want to push back on it. And now you're in a fight with yourself. And the more you resist, the more it persists.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of getting into a fight, trying to stuff it down, right? Like, I'm just going to silence this and stuff it. That doesn't work because that part is still there trying to be heard.
Yeah. I mean, speaking personally, I have had instances in the past where I have had, a negative voice and I've tried to just suppress it.
Yeah.
And then it just comes back louder because it still wants to be heard. So how can I...
It's just screaming from the closet where you've locked it in. And
it gets louder eventually. Eventually it's going to kick that door down. It's going to get louder. And it's going to be one of the loudest voices because I suppressed it for so long and I didn't actually deal with it.
Or it'll wait till your guard is down and then come forward in some even louder, more destructive behavioral fashion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the trick there is don't resist any of these inner parts. You want to switch to curiosity and say, okay, assuming that this inner voice, say it's an inner critic saying, oh, you suck. Okay, let's assume positive intent.
Right.
What's the positive intent? The positive intent is maybe this voice has high standards and wants me to show up as my best.
Right.
Great. I can align with that intention. I don't love the tone, but we can negotiate now. And
Well-
you can work with your parts to be like, I appreciate what you're trying to say, but can we negotiate a better way to say it?
If I'm speaking to myself in that way, at a certain point, it's going to be very demotivating.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or you get defensive. Like,
yeah,
imagine for a second, if we take the model of parts and think of a part as another person. So if you're in a relationship, there's going to be conflict.
Yes.
And your partner may come at you trying to express a need that hasn't been met, or trying to encourage you in a certain way.
Yeah.
But it sounds like criticism or blame, because sometimes that's how it comes out.
Yep.
And then what do? You get defensive and you push back. But you can imagine a conversation with your partner where you're saying, hey, you know what? I appreciate what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Here's a way you can be more supportive to me.
Right.
That'll make it easier for me to receive. And then you negotiate a better communication pattern.
How can we be on the same team?
How can we be on the same team? Precisely. Yeah. And just like you might negotiate with a relationship partner or with a boss on here's how I like to receive feedback, here's what works for me, you can do the same thing with your own inner parts. And there's an exercise that's actually fascinating to do. You can sit down and you can do a self-dialogue, either with a pen and paper or with a Word document. I did one of these on a plane, and it sounds weird, but if you get into it, it flows quite naturally.
A lot of tools for self-work and internal thoughts do feel weird at the beginning. And then when you start doing them,
when you get into it, it's like, oh, this is actually something.
It does actually help.
So I was on an airplane once, and you invite the part into the conversation. What part is here to have this conversation? And then what do you want to be called? And it may give you a name or a title or something. And then you just ask questions. What is it that you want from me? What's your positive intention? And then and see what comes up.
Right.
And write down the answer. And then you ask another question. And there's this thing like an empty chair exercise is another similar version of it. You're talking to a part of yourself in an empty chair or an imagined other person, and just let it flow and see what comes out of it, with the intention of being curious, appreciating what that part wants to do for you, and negotiating a better working agreement that's going to be more useful moving forward.
So instead of being an inner critic, it sort of develops into a partner or a coach.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Something more encouraging rather than punishing. Yeah. So that's kind of the very skimming the surface, internal family systems parts kind of approach.
Right.
More tangibly, there's a framework we can offer that's useful. Cheesy acronym, useful framework.
Acronyms are great for that, right?
They are.
It's just a device to jog your memory so that you can. Anyway, so the framework is the CARE framework. So CARE stands for catch, assess, reframe, embed. So I want to notice first of all that I've got that.
So that's the catch part.
That's the catch part.
You got to catch yourself in the act and notice that you're doing it.
Yeah. So I'm catching myself in the moment saying the thing, oh, you're so stupid. Hang on. Okay. Caught it. Got it. Okay. Now the next piece is assess, right? So catch, assess, reframe, embed. Assess. Is this true? Am I so stupid? Or did I just do a stupid thing? And so there's a difference, right? Doing something that is thoughtless versus being someone who, so assessing, is this true?
Right.
No, I'm not a stupid person. I might have done something that was thoughtless in the moment.
Absent-minded or...
Sure. Happens. Is it necessary for me to
say that?
Continually tell myself that I'm a stupid person?
Right.
No, it's not. Is it kind? No. Is it something that I would tolerate from anybody else?
Right.
No. Is it something that I would say to anybody else? Because it's tough to defend yourself for some people. So if you can't yet get to a place where you would say, would I tolerate this from someone else? Because for some people, the answer might be yes.
Right.
Then just change the question. Is this a way that I would treat anybody else?
Or is this a way that I would let someone speak to a child?
Yeah. Whatever works for you, right? But get to a place where there's somebody worth defending.
Yeah.
And eventually that will be you. Right? It might take a couple of steps to get there. So find out what that first step is. Who is that person that you want to defend? If it's not you, figure it out, and eventually you can project yourself into that.
Right.
So catch it when it happens. Assess it. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind?
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
Yeah, I just like the is it true, is it necessary, is it kind framework for, it's a check-in for whether you should say something at all.
Yeah.
Out loud to another person.
Right.
And you're just applying the same standard to whether you're going to allow yourself to speak to yourself that way.
Yeah.
So catch, assess.
Next was reframe.
Yeah.
So replace any harsh or vague or non-constructive talk with alternatives that are constructive. How would you say it if you were giving feedback to someone that you were responsible for helping? How would you say it to a person that you cared about or a person that you loved, right? So, you know what? That wasn't the smartest move. In the future, maybe you should do this instead of, my God, you're such an idiot.
Right. Now, some people, there's a pitfall here. How would you say it to someone if you're giving them feedback? Some people would water down the message and would withhold and just wouldn't say it in a way that's direct. They would essentially bullshit the other person.
But because you're the person bullshitting yourself.
Right. So assuming you're good at feedback, and if you're not, we have another episode on how to deliver feedback.
Oh yeah, we just did a feedback episode.
Check that one out. We'll link to it somewhere here.
Shameless plug.
So the reframe has to ring true. It has to feel accurate, right? You can't get away with BSing yourself because you'll know you're doing it.
Yeah.
But there's usually a way to upgrade the phrasing such that it maintains the signal and gets rid of the noise, right? Instead of saying, oh, I'm an idiot, it's, oh, I was multitasking and wasn't paying enough attention to this thing I was doing.
Yeah.
So I banged my thumb with a hammer.
Right.
Not because I'm an idiot, but because I was trying to do two things at once. And when I'm trying to do two things at once, neither of those things should involve a hammer.
Yeah.
Right? It's true. It's more accurate, more useful.
Yes.
And more kind. So catch, assess, reframe. The reframe, there's always a way to reframe and upgrade the way that you say something to yourself.
Well, and it's useful, right? When we reframe it, we give ourselves access to a different way of thinking about ourselves, a different way of experiencing things. And that can help just, I mean, if this whole thing has been about cleaning up your internal dialogue, this is how you do it, through reframing. It might take a little while, but the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. The last piece is embedding. So reinforcing new patterns, right?
Because it's one thing to catch yourself in the act once and to reframe a particular instance of it. But most of us, our self-talk is a well-worn path that we've practiced for decades.
Yeah.
So you're not going to erase those old patterns, but you're trying to carve out new ones. And like any new habit, it requires practice and repetition. So this is the embed piece.
So one of the things that I do, if we're talking about embedding, is I was talking to someone once about negative self-talk, which is something I used to do a lot. And they said, you know what? When you notice negative self-talk, one of the things that you can do is you can say, thanks. I appreciate, because if we're talking about the parts thing, right?
Yeah.
We say, thank you, got it, heard, and then you can reframe it from there. So if I catch myself saying, God, that was so stupid, instead of telling that part of myself to stop or shut up or shut down or to quiet it, I'll say, thank you, and I'll try and see where the value was, and that's how I can embed those new pathways.
Right. Other things you can do to consciously cultivate more constructive self-talk is you can get in the habit of journaling or just capturing wins.
Yeah.
We always notice our mistakes, but we tend to downplay or gloss over our victories. And so at the end of a day, you can just have a habit of reflecting on, say, 1 to 3 things during the day that you did really well that you can be proud of.
Yeah. Or another way to do it is, if you don't want to journal, if that's not something that works for you, if there's someone in your life, a partner or a friend, maybe you call one another at the end of the day, or you speak to your partner at the end of the day and say like, hey, what's something that went really well? And you can help reinforce those wins.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've got a group of people I speak to weekly on Friday mornings, and we always start off with just sharing wins. What's a win from the week?
Right.
And there's always something.
Yeah.
And it feels good to pause and reflect on a victory. And there's a few things about this. Ideally, like with habits, it's the number of reps you get in that really help ingrain it. So you want to do this daily if you can.
Yeah.
And you can.
Absolutely.
And, you can use something called habit stacking, which is one way to help a new habit stick is if you ride the coattails of an existing one that's already well established.
Right.
So for example, brushing your teeth. I assume you brush your teeth every night before bed. While you're brushing your teeth, you can just mentally replay your day and find
a win
or 3, and remind yourself, oh, that's something I feel good about today.
Yeah.
And you want to do it not just intellectually, like making a note of it. You want to practice, because that's the thought part, but you also want to practice the emotional component. allow yourself to actually feel the positive emotion that goes with it. So whether that's pride or confidence or accomplishment, satisfaction, whatever the feelings are that come with it. So conjure up the thought, practice saying it to yourself nicely, like that the positive reinforcement. Hey, I really crushed that presentation today. And then let yourself experience the emotion, because emotions can also be habits, right? We practice feeling certain ways. It's all neurology, right? It's all brain stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you want to practice that brain stuff.
Yeah. Carve new neural pathways. Get to that point where this becomes habitual, and the way you speak to yourself.
Carving new habits.
So
yeah, watch out for a couple pitfalls. A lot of perfectionists will justify their perfectionism as just having high standards. That's one snag. Another one is reframing again that feels fake or forced. It's got to be authentic. It's got to ring true.
Yeah.
But I would assert that there's always a way that does ring true and is probably more accurate than your initial knee-jerk negative inner voice, and it's worth cultivating.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do, this is a little more time and labor intensive, more of a commitment, but meditation is a huge tool in the tool belt for quieting your mind. And if you're even remotely curious, I'd strongly recommend exploring meditation. There's lots of apps out there. There's all kinds of guided meditations on YouTube. Find one you like, start small, 10 minutes a day, and just practice quieting your mind. It's an investment that pays dividends big time.
Pete Holmes, he's a comedian. He has a podcast, and he was talking about how he meditates. And someone had said to him, he said, I don't have 10 minutes to meditate a day. And they said, if you don't have 10 minutes to meditate a day, you need to meditate for 20 minutes a day.
I've heard that too. Yeah. If you don't have time to meditate 10 minutes, you need to do 20.
Yeah.
You couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. So signs this is working. You might find yourself with more of a spring in your step.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might find less anxiety, less stress.
You pause before reacting. You're less reactionary. You offer grace internally, which means you may be
more graceful
with others. For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Confidence, calmness, inner peace.
Less performative in your outward speaking with others.
More authentic. The more comfortable you are with yourself, the more genuinely and vulnerably you'll find yourself sharing yourself.
Well, because part of this is you're building self-confidence.
That's right.
When you speak to yourself in a nice way, it helps you to become a more confident person, and as a result, a more genuine and more honest person.
Yeah.
You're not trying to show the best parts.
There's nothing to hide. You're not doing impression management anymore. This can really run deep.
Absolutely. It's going to change the way that you speak to other people as well.
Yeah.
One of the pitfalls is when we have a lot of negative self-talk, if that's the way that I talk to myself, eventually that's going to slip out and I'm going to speak to other people that way because I feel as though that is an appropriate way to just have a dialogue, right? So yeah, it's going to clean up a lot of things. There are a lot of benefits.
And you'll become more effective in life for sure. One example of a powerful reframe, I'll share something from my own personal life. Years ago, say 25 years ago. So I'm in my early mid-20s at the time. And, I'd be dating and I was insecure, like a lot of people in their early 20s.
Sure.
And I'd be self-critical and nervous on a date. I could hear myself worrying about, does she like me? Is she judging me? Do I look all right? Is she attracted to me?
Yeah.
All of these thoughts going through my mind. And with all of that inner noise, I would show up kind of visibly insecure or nervous.
Right.
And then that kind of anxiety and nervousness was off-putting and the date wouldn't go so well. And maybe I didn't get a second date. And then that would reinforce this belief that, I'm just not good with women or women aren't attracted to me or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then that was this loop that I was in for a while.
Right.
And then one day I paused and said, let me just examine this worldview, right? Because fundamentally I had it framed like she's showing up there for the purpose of judging me. And I was terrified of failing and getting it wrong. And I thought that through and was like, for that to be true, the person across the table from me would have to be like a really sadistic.
Yeah.
Who would do that to show up just to pick someone apart?
Yeah.
What's more likely? More likely, this woman has already agreed to spend a few hours on a Thursday night having dinner or a drink with me.
Yep.
That means she already likes me enough to carve out an evening from her week.
Well, plus think about all of the other things that go into that, right? Like she spent time before showing up to meet you, a couple of hours probably.
Getting ready.
If she's anything like my partner.
Right.
Right? So
hair, makeup,
prepping.
Totally.
Trying to figure out what outfit to wear. Like it takes a lot for a person to show up to meet on a date. Like
so it's an investment of time,
there's a
preparation,
lot of time.
all of that. So she already likes me enough to invest that amount of time and effort.
Yeah.
And presumably she didn't do that in hopes of wasting her evening and being disappointed. So she likes me a bit already and wants to like me more.
Yeah.
So this person isn't someone I should be scared of. She's my biggest cheerleader. She wants this to be fun. She wants this to go well.
Yeah.
Okay. We both want this to go well.
Right.
Now we're on the same team.
Now you're on the same team.
Okay. And that just totally, something shifted. It was like a light bulb went on because it made so much more sense than the worldview I had brought to this before.
Right.
And so when I thought of it that way, she's already attracted to me enough to come out on a random Thursday.
Yeah.
She wants to like me more. She wants this to go well. It took so much of the pressure off. And then instead of me trying to impress this person and either succeed or fail at something, it was, we're both here just trying to explore whether this is a fit.
Yeah.
And it either already is or isn't. So there's nothing to succeed or fail at. I'm not trying to cause something to be true that isn't already true. I'm just trying to find out what's there.
Yeah.
And so we're just kind of getting to know each other. And it took all the pressure off. And my dating life radically transformed from that point forward.
Right.
And, no looking back. That was great. So
yeah,
that's just one small example of how deep this can go and how much of a difference it can make.
But it's a really great example.
Life.
And I think that if our listeners or our viewers right now are taking that in, like where is somewhere in your life where if you just took one step back and assessed it rationally without ego and looked at it, like where is it that you are having that same sort of experience where you're shutting yourself down before you even get started because you already have all the answers, right? And that nagging voice is already telling you all the
evidence, because I had all kinds of dates that didn't go well, which were evidence to me that reinforced that negative belief.
Yeah.
But when this light bulb went on or the switch was flipped in my mind, all of a sudden I was collecting all kinds of new, much better evidence.
Yeah.
And I became much more confident. And now, I'm not single now, but like in the last, as far back as I can remember in my modern dating life, it goes well almost every time because I see myself differently. I see the whole experience differently and I get different results. And now I've got all kinds of evidence that reinforces this new belief. So beliefs are powerful, and it's really important to practice internal belief or dialogue hygiene like we're recommending here.
And it's going to be tough. You're like Chris just said, you're going to have evidence for all of those negative beliefs and all of that critical self-talk. So just use that care approach, right? Notice your inner dialogue this week. Even if you just take one moment and you see something that's harsh or unhelpful, write it down and then assess it, right? Would I say this to a person who was a friend of mine? Would I say this to a child? And if not, reframe it.
And is it true? Is there a more accurate and more helpful way to look at this?
Yeah.
And then do that, reframe it and see how it feels. Notice what shifts in your experience, in your belief system, in your emotions. And if you can get into like a daily habit of just taking note of catching yourself in the act of undermining yourself.
Yeah.
Write it down, analyze it. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? What's a healthier, more evolved, more adult way of assessing the situation?
Right.
And then reframe it and say it to yourself that way and see how it feels.
So necessary is a good one, right? Is it necessary? You might feel as though it is necessary to say these sorts of things to yourself. So what's a kinder way that you could do it?
And is it true? Because a lot of these things will just, if you really look at them objectively, a lot of the stuff you say to yourself is bullshit. It's not true. It's not kind. Certainly not helpful.
Yeah.
And you ought to knock it off.
And you're keeping yourself stuck. Yeah. Stop it.
Stop it. Stop it. And if you do find yourself doing it, you're very bad.
Bad, wrong, and you should be very self-critical and judge yourself
up over that. It's terrible. It's a terrible habit, and you are an awful, awful human being. Another habit you can practice is make a note of daily wins, which we mentioned. Let yourself feel it, make a note of it, and get in touch with the feeling.
Share with other people. I think that's a great way. Like, celebrate your wins with other people. I'm a big advocate for that. Just like, here's something that I'm really excited about. Here's something that I'm proud that happened. Doesn't have to be a big thing, but
little things.
Share it with people in your life.
Some will be big, some will be small, but it's a useful habit to get into.
Yeah.
And bonus points if you share this episode with a friend who might benefit from getting a better inner roommate.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
As always, we hope this was useful. If you did enjoy it, give us a like, a subscribe, forward it to a friend.
Yeah.
And thanks for tuning in.